Well, good Monday morning, everyone. This is Dr. Bill Williams on the Influencers Podcast coming to you again with another session. And today we have Eric Rodwell, who is a leader in the Presales Collective. This is an interesting conversation we're going to have today because Eric's going to explain what in the heck is Presales Collective and what does that have to do with you and your job, your work, your business. Welcome to the Influencers Podcast, Eric.
Hey, Dr. Bill, good seeing you, and thanks for having me on today.
Absolutely. Well, it was always interesting to find out something that I didn't understand about until I talked to you earlier. So I want you to kind of break ice with the people today on the Influencers Podcast. We're a group of interested people from around the world, 200 and something countries tune in to this podcast. And what we do is we highlight interesting individuals with a unique story. And I think you would fit that category. So tell us where you were, what happened, and who you were surrounded by that inspired you to do something that's called Presales Collective.
Yeah, absolutely. So probably like most people, I kind of fell into pre-sales, and we'll talk a little bit about what that is here in a moment. But in terms of how I got into this, I always wanted to make an impact. And as part of that impact, I wanted to be part of technology as well. And so I started out as a software developer, creating applications both on-premise and online. And over time, I kind of built that and grew that, and always wanted to be a leader of people as well. As part of developing that software, I would do things that we call a demonstration. So we'd actually show prospects and customers how that software worked, answer their technical questions, hopefully try and tie into how it solved business problems that they were having, and so forth. And so I did that for a number of years, and then over time started to lead teams of engineering and product, customer success, and support. And then I came across an opportunity at an organization, and it was around pre-sales, or also called sales engineering as well. And I was intrigued, and somebody that I was working with had talked with me and said, "Hey, I think you'd be great for this role because it's what you've been doing. You get to talk to customers about technology and help define the value that technology has, help answer their technical questions, help demonstrate how that software can solve problems for them, and so forth." And that was called pre-sales. So I started in pre-sales and actually was leading pre-sales teams. And one of the things that we're trying to do at the Presales Collective is really try and build the profession of pre-sales. Over the course of time, pre-sales is really looked at as a support function. So we work hand in hand with direct sellers, right? So the direct sellers are the ones that are out doing the qualification, doing the discovery. I like to say a lot of the heavy lifting at times. But then at some point in time, they bring us in to help on the technical side. And what we say is to achieve the technical win. And so that's where we start doing demonstrations of the software, answering those technical questions, and at times even having to set up environments, do trials, and those types of things as well. So we work hand in hand with the sellers to help on the technical piece of the application. So at the Presales Collective, again, we're looked at historically as a support function. So a seller brings us in, we answer the questions, we do the demonstration, and then hopefully we move that sale along and close the deal ultimately. But with the Presales Collective, what we really want to do is make pre-sales a strategic part of the organization, not just part of the sale, but as part of the organization. Have a seat at the table from an executive point of view. Because when pre-sales is used correctly, it really can help the business and drive ultimately revenue for the business as well. And not just looked at as a support function, but really a strategic part of the business. And one of the reasons for that is because we interact not only with prospects and customers, but really everybody internally in the business as well. Not only our sellers, but product, engineering, customer success, and so forth. So that's really what we're trying to do as part of the Presales Collective.
I can understand that it's more than just a salesman. It's more than just a technical developer. You got to have the skills of both, add them together. And to me, it looks like a make or break it position in a company. If you don't do good pre-sales in a technical aspect, you're not going to sell product.
That's exactly right. And what I really love about the role, and one of the reasons why I got in it, is because it's really a combination of technical. So we have to know the technical parts of our product, also of, say, like the larger ecosystem. So for example, if we were using customer relationship management, CRM, let's say we were selling that type of software, or maybe something that adds on to that. Not only would we have to know about our specific product, but knowing about other CRM systems, Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, HubSpot, and others really helps. So you have to, from a technical point of view, be able to go very deep. But one of the things that I really like about it is we're also part of the sales team. So you also have to have selling acumen, handling objections that prospects or customers may have. Hey, I saw a customer that had this feature or functionality. How do you support that? Or why don't you support that? Also being able to ask really good discovery questions. If I'm a prospect or a customer, a lot of times when a seller gets on the phone, I have my guard up and I'm like, what are they trying to sell me, right? And what if I say something or I say something incorrect, how are they going to use that against me? And so I have my guard up. When somebody in pre-sales, a technical resource, gets on the call, a lot of times the customer or the prospect says, wow, this is somebody that can help me. So the more information I share with them, the more they're going to be able to understand the problems that I have and hopefully be able to show me how their solution solves those. So being able to ask really good questions or discovery questions as a pre-sales individual can really help kind of move that sell along. And a lot of times a customer will be more open to answering those questions when they come from a technical resource as opposed to a direct seller.
Hey, that really opens up the door to a lot of questions about, doing it right versus doing it wrong. If you're a company that is going to succeed in the competitive business environment, you need people like yourself, the pre-sales qualified expert, to be one of your lead team people. So I see what you're saying, but let's look at it from a point of view of the inadequate person who hasn't really got your background, trying to do the job of a pre-sales professional. What happens when you get the wrong people, just a salesman or just a technician developer, trying to do what you're saying is the pre-sales professional position job?
Yeah. So what I like to do is I really like to break it into three areas. And so we talked a little bit about technical, right? So you have to have some technical acumen. And as we mentioned, you really have to understand your product. You have to be able to go deep in your product. And when you're dealing with one product or one line of product, or maybe a fairly straightforward product, that usually doesn't take as much time, right? But if you're dealing with a large, complex product, or you're in a complex kind of industry, that can be very hard to know a lot about a lot of things. So being able to go very deep and wide. So that, I would say, is one area where people can fail, is just in terms of not maybe having the product knowledge that they need to be successful, or even kind of saying, wow, I have to know everything about 8 different lines of our product and have to be able to go very deep. And oh, by the way, they support 10 different industries. So I have to know everything about all those 10 different industries. And oh, by the way, there's other products in the market that I have to know about. So, and there's ways that a company can kind of help out with that. So I think that's one, is from the technical point of view. The second is from a selling point of view, right? So you have to have a good mix of kind of technical and selling. So a lot of times us technical people, we love to geek out on the technical aspects of the product, right? We want to show the coolest whiz-bang feature or functionality that's out there, right? We just came out with this brand new release and it's amazing. And here's all the features. and all the functionality that it provides. But we have to be able to tie that back to the so what, the business value. So another area where people fail is that they focus too much on the technical, right? And there's a bit of a issue there when I just said, hey, you have to know a lot about the technical, but you also have to know about kind of selling and business pieces of it. So you have to be able to tie those technical kind of speeds and feeds into business value. What does it mean to the customer? Why do they care, right? How is it going to help them solve a problem? So I think that's one area as well. And then the third area is you really have to have kind of those interpersonal skills. So we're talking to prospects and customers a lot. We have to be able to be great presenters, right? We have to be able to kind of draw the audience in, be dynamic, right? We also have to be able to tell great stories. So even if you have kind of that technical acumen, that business acumen, you still have to pull it together and hopefully be able to tell a compelling story. And I think lastly, it's be memorable, especially in this online world that we're in. Customers and prospects are talking to vendors all the time, right? And a lot of times they see the same thing. The seller and the pre-sales technical person show up, they give a demonstration, they kind of talk about why you want to buy the product. It's not very memorable or exciting. And then you go on to the next one. They're seeing this all the time. So you really have to make it memorable so that they remember you and say, oh, that's somebody I want to do business with. That's a product that I want to use and I can see its value.
What you're talking about sounds a lot like the dental world, highly technical aspect, but it's personally delivered. And if you're the dentist presenting your technical expertise in big dental topic words, you lose the people. So you got to get down on their level, their basis, and you got to show them the benefits, not the features. So I know exactly where you're coming from. And I teach dentists all the time about how to be better in business as well as technical aspects. So I guess I'm a pre-sales professional and I didn't even know it.
I love it. Yep. We are all part of the pre-sales profession for sure.
Thank you for sharing that. It's extremely valuable to our audience. Eric, what's the thing that motivates you internally?
Yeah, impact is what motivates me internally. At the end of the day, I really just want to make a lasting impact. And that's why I get up every morning. That's why I do what I do. And that's what really drives me. I hope, when I'm kind of sitting on my deathbed, if I have the chance, that people say, here's somebody that was kind, cared a lot, and made an impact, personally, professionally, with his family, with his friends, and, with all of those that he interacted with.
Excellent. Well, you will be making an impact with my audience. I know that. Tell me about your company, your motto that you live by.
Yeah. Again, I think it just gets back to making pre-sales more strategic part of the organization. That's really what we're trying to do, and really kind of elevate the profession of pre-sales. Again, as I mentioned, it's always looked at as a support function, right, of the organization. And there's a lot of different support functions of the organization. A lot of times we have like business development or sales development folks, right, that are really doing a lot of the cold calling. They're considered a support part of the business of sales. You have pre-sales, which is kind of considered that as well. And again, really trying to elevate that profession and making it strategic part of the business, having a seat at, say, the executive table. A lot of times pre-sales reports into sales. And so really having them, say, report into, say, the chief executive officer, and really making it part of the overall part of the business, is really what we strive to do.
More elbow room, more seat at the table. I like it.
That's right.
What about success secrets that we can model from? What would be 3 things that we can do to increase our pre-sales?
Yeah, I think, around that, it's like really finding individuals that have kind of that good mix, right? So that geek out about the technical pieces, right? but also like kind of, I'll say, the thrill of selling. We are on the front lines. We're dealing with prospects and customers. We're dealing with competitors. We're dealing with our internal product teams around new releases and those types of things. So you are really at the front lines. And so you really like and get excited about, I'll say the highs of the wins and the lows of the losses, as well. And then, I think people that, really enjoy, I'll say, presenting, telling a great story, those types of things, I think are really important, as well. I think that's specific to pre-sales. I think in terms of, if I think a little bit higher level in terms of success, if I look at myself personally, and I think this is also true of individual, pre-sales folks, is genuinely care, like genuinely caring about what you're doing, what you're selling, right? And your prospects and customers. And I think that really sets pre-sales people apart, because we genuinely care about our prospects and customers and helping them solve a problem. And we show them how they can solve the specific problem. I think that's really important as well.
Speaking of the client, now you talk about the pre-sales position as a profession. And so the client would be the people that hire the pre-sales person, I'm guessing. Who would be the ideal type of company that would want pre-sales professionals?
Yeah, this is an interesting question, because we've kind of talked about and I'll use the word divide, but I don't mean that in a negative connotation, but we have sellers, right? So we have people that are the direct sales individuals, right? And then we bring in a specialized role, pre-sales, to kind of help bridge that technical knowledge. Because as a seller, for example, right, you're really focused on, let's say, winning new business, right? And so you have to develop kind of your territory model, and you have to do some prospecting. And, when you get a customer, right, you have to kind of make sure that you're, I'll say, managing them and managing the opportunity and managing your sales manager and those types of things. And so there's a lot of work that goes into that. But one of the things that we're seeing, and I think it'll be interesting, is do you see kind of a melding of the roles? And what I mean by that is that sellers that have the technical knowledge of, say, your product, of the industry, of the marketplace, I actually believe they're much more successful. So customers, right, and prospects that have, that are trying to solve problems from a technical point of view can really focus and I'll say benefit from pre-sales. But I think organizations that really focus on bridging maybe that gap, where maybe in the future you don't have this direct seller and pre-sales, you just have one person that can do it both, right? So that could be something that we see in the future, because again, I'll come back to sellers that have the technical knowledge of the product, of the customer, and can go deep. They gain a lot of credibility with the customer. And you don't have to say, oh, let me go get my technical resource to come in and answer those questions because I don't know the answers to them, right? Because then they're like, well, what are you here for? You're just here to sell me something? I need somebody that can help solve my problems. So I think it'll be interesting to see how kind of that evolves in the future.
I think about, the type products that flow through this kind of a system, and it's got to be the high ticket item. It's got to be the complex item, something that has involvement in so many different areas that might be computer software, it might be how to use equipment in a medical environment. I know I bought lasers and CAD CAM machines and things that took a lot of understanding to implement. And the person who brought it to the office didn't just open a box and I paid an invoice. They had to explain how it worked. They had to be there in the operating room helping while I used it. So is that somebody that you would be looking for as an ideal client and an ideal situation for pre-sales?
Yeah, I would say so. Now, what's interesting is pre-sales is all focused on everything that's done up to say, selling the particular product, right? And then a lot of times what will happen in organizations is kind of once the customer buys that product, we'll do a handoff, but a lot of times we hand that off to our post-sales team, right? And then the post-sales team, or say professional services or implementation, they come in and let's say in that case, like they would come in and install that equipment in the hospital, right? Or in the dentist's office. And then they would actually train those dentists how to use it and then be there to troubleshoot and things of that nature, right? So one of the things, again, back to elevating the profession and making it strategic is you'll see organizations that have their pre-sales people follow that customer post-sales as well. And there's a lot of benefit there because we gain so much knowledge working with the customer, a lot of times for months in the pre-sales point of view, that if we just hand that off to our post-sales implementation team, we lose a lot of that information and that relationship that we built. You know, they're kind of like, Eric, I've been working with you for 6 months. Who's this new person that's coming in? Do they know about our business? I don't have a relationship with them. So again, back to what we've been talking about is maybe one of the things we do is take those pre-sales people and they kind of live with the customer through the life cycle, right? And then when that customer wants to buy more things, you have the same person you've been dealing with the whole time that knows their business inside and out, you know, has built those relationships and kind of say, hey, here's what you need next, right? Or here's what can help benefit you as you move forward.
I don't doubt that a bit. I mean, it seems very logical to me. Is there a way to find a match between the pre-sales people who really want to excel in that as a profession and an ideal client or an ideal company they join?
Yeah, so I think that you're seeing more and more companies, and definitely over the past, I'll say 5 years, right, that are realizing the benefit of pre-sales and really, focusing and hiring for those types of roles. I'll also say that it also depends a little bit on the size of the company, right? So if you're a startup, a lot of times you're not going to have, I'll say, a dedicated pre-sales resource, right? Because you have, your smaller organization, you're going to have people that wear many, many hats. So you're probably doing pre-sales because I've been like this. I was at a very small company, a startup. I was developing our software, right? So I was actually coding it. Then I was going and presenting that to prospects and customers because I knew so much about our software because I was developing it. I had to go and talk to prospects and customers around the benefit of it and why they should buy it. I was also doing kind of that post-sales implementation because, again, I knew how it worked. I knew how to implement it, those types of things. So as companies get a little bit larger, they get to a point where they're like, we can have dedicated pre-sales folks that can focus, partner with our sellers, and then really help focus our customers on it as well. One of the things that I'll say as part of the pre-sales collective is we have an academy because we've talked a lot about different things, technical knowledge, selling knowledge, business acumen, and so forth. Sure, you can figure it out like a lot of us have around how to be a pre-sales person, but we actually have an academy that you can go through and learn kind of the ins and outs of what does it mean to be part of a pre-sales individual or a team? What are the activities that you're focused on? How do you really communicate value to customers and so forth?
So as you're developing in the academy, particularly, are there online sales training or online platforms that you and your company rely on that might be shareable?
Yeah, so I think one of the greatest resources we have is our own website, right? So presalescollective.com. You can go there. We've got a lot of good blog articles, just a lot of great resources. There's also a community behind this as well, where you can interact and network with fellow pre-sales folks, anywhere from somebody that's brand new, this is the first time they've ever heard of pre-sales, and they want to learn more, all the way to seasoned executives that have been doing this for 20 years that are really continue trying to push this forward as a profession, as well. And then within there, you can join our kind of Slack group, where again, there's a lot more kind of interaction going on. You can meet, kind of weekly, monthly with mentors Also just do kind of a coffee meeting as well, just to learn more about what is this, how do I get involved, and so forth. And then also offering, I'll say, opportunities around, say, job boards and those types of things around what companies are hiring, what skills are they looking for, and then how can you, kind of match those skills to the individuals as well.
So, Eric, if there's a person or a group of people who have an interest in being involved in this area, and they represent software companies, they would find this very useful to go in and say, here's what I need to do to be excellent in presenting and bringing forward what I've got to offer. And these online platforms that you reference would be a goldmine for them, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. Anything from how do I set up a pre-sales, kind of organization at my company, right? A team, all the way to very kind of very specific things around, how do I align my pre-sales folks to give the best coverage model, to our sellers, and how do I, kind of build a relationship with our product team to make sure that we're getting feedback to them back and forth as well. So a lot of great resources there, from how do I start from ground zero to how do I continue to evolve my practice and, really have the best pre-sales organization that I can.
I think that'd be very helpful. What about a 5-star client experience? Can a pre-sales person really hone their skill to do something that would be a wow result, presentation result?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we've heard this a million times, but it's so true with this profession. One is just listening to the customer, right? And I think when we hear, because, we have competitors, right, that we work with that have a pre-sales, team as well. So we'll have 2 or 3 of us, right, competitors going to try and win one company, one part of a company, and we'll get feedback, right? We'll get feedback as part of the sales process, and even sometimes after, whether we win or lose. And I'll say 9 times out of 10, maybe 99 times out of 100, the reason why the company went with a specific solution or a team is because they listened to them and they really took the time to understand the business, the problems that they were having. And then we come back and say, based on everything we've heard, let's kind of walk you through and show you how we can partner with you for the long term. We're not just here to sell you a piece of software. We're really here to be a partner for you. And we heard what you said. And the way that you show that is by kind of regurgitating and showing them, hey, you told us this, let's show you how we solve this. You told us that, let's show you how we solve that, and so forth.
And you can't do it unless you know your product.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And the business that the customer is in as well.
Absolutely. Vital. So how do you convert people to brand ambassador level? I mean, moving up that chain of getting the referrals and getting this to be a well-oiled machine?
Yeah, I think it's part of just building a relationship, right? With that customer. And again, when you really take the time to listen, and I would say be empathetic towards the customer, as well. I think it's really important, and you earn that trust and credibility through every interaction that you have, right? And so if you're, I'll say, fortunate enough to win that business because you've built enough trust and credibility, and then you have to deliver on it, right? So back to what we were talking about with pre-sales and post-sales, at times pre-sales will get kind of a bad connotation because we tell them about the art of the possible and everything that they could possibly do, and it's magical. And it's all rainbows and butterflies. And then when they get to implement the software, they're like, wow, this is complex. There's a lot to it. How am I ever going to realize the value? It's going to take me years, from that perspective. So you have to be able to deliver on the things that you shared with them, the value that you talked about them with. That's really a big piece. And if you can do that, right, if you can show them the value and deliver on that value, they absolutely become brand ambassadors, and will go out and tell others about how great you are and why they should go with you as well.
Great advice from a true professional. Tell us what you're grateful for today, Eric.
Yeah, I think I'm a family guy, right? So I'm grateful for my family. Got an amazing wife, an amazing daughter, and I'm just grateful that I'm able to be a very supportive father to them. And I mentioned impact earlier. I want to leave a lasting impact for the people that I interact with every day from a professional point of view, but I hope I can instill some good values in my daughter as well, so that as she continues to grow and hopefully will be a future leader, of whatever she's in the future, we'll be able to make a lasting impact as well.
Family's a big deal for everybody here on this program. So yeah, I'm glad you put your priorities in order. You get the good balance of life. How do you start every day?
I start every day with a workout. So I try to do a 30-minute workout. I am not a coffee guy. I stopped caffeine probably 5 years ago. I drink no caffeine whatsoever, unless you consider tea. I know tea has some caffeine, so I'm more of a tea guy. But that's really how I get my days going, is to have a workout every morning.
Can't beat that. If you have challenges, what do you do to overcome them?
I think staying positive, right? I mean, I know people, it's like, that's just a default, but I really do believe that, it's like we attract what we think about. We all have challenges. We all have hard days, hard weeks, hard months, hard years. But it's like, if we can stay positive, if we can find the good in everything, I think that goes a really long way as well. And then, finally, I'd just say, be kind. I think at times we lose sight of that. We don't know what people are going through. There's a quote, it's like, be kind, because we don't know what that other person, is going through at this point in time. And so I think that's really, what I would focus on.
Yeah. And better advice is just to listen and understand and know that somebody else's position in life isn't the same as yours, and you have welcome advice. What about this question I'd like to ask about your advice to your 20-year-old self, looking at your experience in life, knowing what you've gone through, what you've overcome? What do you tell that young self?
Yeah, I think take more risks, right? That's what I would tell my 20-year-old self. Don't get too hung up, on fear and failure. That's how we learn. That's how we get better. A lot of times we take it really personal when we fail at something, or we're not very good at something, or we maybe don't give it our best, shot, or, our best effort, something like that. But that's okay. It's like, be kind to yourself as well. But I think really taking those risks is really what I would do. And that's what I tell my daughter, as well. We only live one life. So, make the most out of it, and, push yourself, right? Take those risks, and you're usually more capable than you ever thought was possible.
Eric, you didn't take the road that was most traveled. You took the road less traveled because of the emphasis you put on pre-sales, because you're trying to make it something more important. You're doing something that a lot of people will benefit from in the future. But who's your living mentor, and what's their impact on you?
Yeah. I thought a lot about this, but I'm going to go back to family, right? For a very long time, it was my mom. She passed away last year. But I really get a lot of inspiration out of my daughter. And every morning I take her to school. Almost every morning. And in the afternoons, I pick her up. And we've got about a 20-minute drive to school. And we talk about everything. We talk about life. We talk about personal stuff. We talk about professional things as well. I share a lot with her around how my team is doing, how the individuals are. She actually knows everybody by name, and she'll ask about them from time to time. But it's interesting. So, we talk, and it's just a really good grounding, right? Because she's got a beginner mindset, and somebody with like me that has over 20 years of experience, talking to somebody that doesn't know much about kind of the business world or about my profession or just around some of those things gives you a really new and fresh perspective. And so that's who my mentor is at the moment.
I've got to agree with you about driving your children to school there and back is the most perfect time to get to know your children. My wife was lucky enough to be able to do that for our children growing up, and they're so close to her because of that time. She found that they would speak more openly when there were no distractions.
Yeah.
They didn't have access to TV, to PlayStations, to iPhones, things that they could get into, and they had to sit and talk with mom. So yeah, you're very fortunate, and I think more people should look at the school driving time as the most important time for children. Very important. Thanks for sharing that.
There's something about it. Yep. And she's getting close to the driving age, so I know that those times will probably be few and far between. But savor it while I can.
Yeah, it's getting to be that time. You hinted at this earlier, but what do you want to be remembered for when it's all said and done?
Yeah, I think just making an impact. I talked with my wife about this a lot, and I think it's changed a little bit because before I had a family, it was really around the impact that I wanted to make with the people that I worked with every day, with my family that I interacted with, and so forth. And my wife had always asked me, when it's all said and done, if you said you were a good father and husband, would that be enough? And at the time she asked me that, I said, well, I don't think so. No, I only impacted 2 people in my entire life. That's it. But as I thought about that more and more, that's really hard to say. Like, was I a great father and husband? That's not easy, right? And so when I think about that now, that would be enough. Absolutely. And I know that there's other people I would impact as well. But, again, impact's really what I want to be remembered for.
Absolutely. Tell us what we can do to support you, your collective, or your company, you individually.
Yeah, I think learn more about what it is to be part of Presales. Learn a little bit more about the profession. One of the really cool things that we've seen is a lot of times we're teachers, right? Because we're teaching people about something new from a technology and software point of view. So we actually get people from different professions that come in, for example, teachers. And so I think it's just, learn more about the profession, learn more, I think, about the exciting parts around it, which I think it's all exciting. But just being part of presenting and storytelling and getting to play with technology and helping people solve problems, and at the end of the day, making a really big impact. I think that's probably the best way that you can support. Then I would say reach out. If you have questions, get involved in the community, learn more, network, and then, reach out to myself and others, if you have questions, on how we can help you as well.
And we can reach you, Eric, on LinkedIn?
Absolutely.
And we can reach the Presales Collective where?
Presalescollective.com.
Nothing easier than learning that. So
there you go.
Tell us about your experience on the show today. How did you like being a guest?
No, this has been great, Dr. Bill. It was so interesting when you first reached out to me. I'm like, what is a dentist reaching out to me for? From that perspective. And then we had our first conversation, a couple weeks ago, and it was just great to learn more about you kind of your background, and then I would say, you trying to talk with, other folks, just around different professions, to kind of help people learn more around all the different things that are out there, and getting them to meet new people, as well. So it's been a great experience, and I really do appreciate you reaching out and having me on your show.
Yeah, there's a lot more out there than people are aware of, is what the final, say so is for me, looking at all the people I interview on the Influencers podcast. It's a vast world of knowledge. It's much more interesting if you get outside of your bubble and see what's out there, and don't spend all your time studying your one niche. That's
right.
what I think. And that always served me well in dentistry. I had a 10-year attention span, and every 10 years I had to do something different and add to my repertoire, add to my hobby list, my things I wanted to do in life. So I can see where, the entrepreneurial spirit can be applied within the sales force or the technical force doing what you're talking about. I want to give you the final word to speak to our audience, then I'll sign off the show and see you later, but let's let you have the final word.
Sounds good. Well, thanks again, Dr. Bill. Really appreciate it. Thank you all for joining us today. I believe that pre-sales is the greatest profession in the world. And so if you're just now learning about it, please take the time, to learn more, to reach out, go to presalescollective.com and join the community. And then finally, back to what I was saying earlier, I think it's continue just to be kind to each other. We're all fighting our own battles, and we don't know what those are from time to time. And so we can just continue to be kind with each other. I think that's a great way to continue to lead life and make an impact.
Thank you, Eric. He is an articulate and very persuasive gentleman, right? Everybody says Eric Rodwell of the Influencers Collective has been very entertaining, very educational to us today. And so thank you for being with us. Our audience will certainly appreciate and learn from you. Hope you'll take advantage of presalecollective.com. I think there's a resource for our audience, because we know that much of our audience deals in software sales. In our little niche of the world, we can use a lot about what Eric's talking about to improve our daily lives. Speaking of improving our daily lives, I want everybody to have access to the golden ticket at otrim.co/golden. That's the entry point into our software ecosystem. So don't let that be a mystery. I want everybody to jump in and see what's available. Things you won't believe. So just take a look at it, and we'll be seeing you all soon on the next issue of the Influencers Podcast.